How ruthless is the most ruthless person you have ever seen? The most ruthless person I've ever encountered was my boss Rebecca at this marketing company I worked for right out of college. And I'm not talking about normal workplace drama or being strict about deadlines. This woman destroyed people's lives like it was a hobby. I started working there in January as a junior account coordinator. The office seemed normal at first, open floor plan, motivational posters on the walls, free coffee in the break room. Rebecca was the vice president of client relations and everyone treated her like royalty. Designer clothes, perfect makeup, always carrying this expensive leather planner. She had this way of smiling that made you feel special, like you were the only person in the room that mattered. But within my first month I started noticing things, like how people would literally scatter when they saw Rebecca coming down the hallway, how conversations would stop mid-sentence when she walked into a room, how certain employees would just disappear without anyone mentioning where they went. My cubicle was right next to the conference room, so I could hear a lot of meetings through the thin walls. Rebecca had this technique where she'd praise someone's work in front of the whole team, then schedule a private meeting later that same day to tear them apart. She'd tell them they were failing, that their work was garbage, that maybe they weren't cut out for this industry, but she'd do it in this calm, sweet voice like she was giving helpful advice. The first person I saw her destroy was this guy Marcus, who worked in graphic design. He'd been there for 3 years and everyone loved his work. Marcus designed these amazing campaigns that won awards for the company, but Rebecca decided she didn't like him for some reason. Maybe because he spoke up during meetings or because clients specifically asked for him by name. Either way, she marked him for elimination. It started small. Rebecca would give Marcus impossible deadlines like design 5 completely different logo concepts by the end of the day. When he couldn't deliver perfection in 4 hours, she'd schedule meetings with his supervisor about his declining performance. She'd CC everyone on emails pointing out tiny mistakes in his work, like if one color was slightly off or if he used the wrong font size in a footnote. Things that literally nobody else would notice or care about. But Marcus kept trying to meet her standards. He'd stay until midnight redesigning things, skip lunch breaks to make revisions. The guy was killing himself trying to prove he was good enough. That's when Rebecca went for the kill shot. She took one of Marcus's best designs, the one that had won a regional advertising award, and presented it to a new client as her own work. When Marcus found out and tried to speak up about it, Rebecca acted shocked. She called a company-wide meeting and said Marcus was making false accusations against her, that he was claiming ownership of work he didn't create. She had somehow doctored the file timestamps to make it look like she'd created everything. Marcus got fired that same day for dishonesty and attempting to steal credit. He tried to fight it, but Rebecca had covered her tracks perfectly. She even managed to make it look like Marcus had been sabotaging other people's projects. The worst part was watching her at his goodbye happy hour. She gave this speech about how sad she was to see him go and how much his contributions had meant to the team. She actually fake cried while she was talking. People who didn't know what really happened thought she was being supportive. But Marcus wasn't her only victim. There was Jennifer in accounting, who Rebecca got fired by gradually switching her files around on her computer. Jennifer would save invoices in one folder, then find them moved to random locations the next day. Rebecca had somehow gotten Jennifer's login password and was logging into her computer after hours to create chaos. Jennifer looked incompetent because she could never find her own work. After 2 months of this, Jennifer got written up for disorganization and eventually fired for poor performance. Then there was David from sales, who Rebecca destroyed by spreading rumors that he was drinking during work hours. She'd plant empty beer bottles in his desk drawer, then tip off his manager about checking David's workspace. She'd schedule important client calls right after lunch, then tell people she smelled alcohol on David's breath. David had been sober for 6 years, but Rebecca's campaign worked. He got sent to rehab and lost his job. The truly psychotic part was how methodical Rebecca was about it. She kept detailed notes about each person she was targeting. I accidentally saw her notebook once when she left it open during a meeting. Pages and pages of observations about people's weaknesses, their schedules, their personal problems. She had written things like Brad mentions divorce stress, use against him, and Katie worried about sick mom, exploit emotional state. Rebecca would use information people shared in confidence to manipulate situations. If someone mentioned their kid was having problems at school, she'd schedule their most important presentation during school conferences. If someone said their spouse was going through medical issues, suddenly that person would get assigned to travel projects that kept them away from home for weeks. The moment I realized how truly ruthless she was happened during my 6th month there. My coworker Ashley had been dealing with fertility issues for years. She'd been doing IVF treatments and had finally gotten pregnant after multiple failed attempts. Ashley was so careful about this pregnancy. She'd schedule doctor appointments during lunch breaks so she wouldn't miss work. She hadn't even told most people yet because she was nervous about jinxing it, but somehow Rebecca found out. She started assigning Ashley to handle the most stressful accounts, constant crisis management, impossible deadlines, clients who screamed at you over the phone. Then Rebecca scheduled Ashley for a business trip to Denver during her most critical pregnancy week, when the doctor had specifically said she needed to avoid flying and stress. When Ashley tried to explain that she couldn't travel, Rebecca acted concerned and understanding. But the next day, Ashley got called into HR for a meeting about her commitment to the company and willingness to fulfill job requirements. Ashley lost the baby 2 weeks later from stress-related complications. She took bereavement leave, and when she came back, Rebecca had reassigned all her clients and moved her to a smaller desk in the corner. Within a month, Ashley was forced to quit because she had no actual work to do. Rebecca had systematically isolated her until leaving was the only option. That's when I realized Rebecca wasn't just ruthless in business. She was genuinely evil. She got satisfaction from watching people suffer and destroying their lives for no reason other than her own entertainment. I quit that job after 8 months and never looked back. But I heard through former coworkers that Rebecca eventually got caught stealing client funds. Apparently her ruthlessness finally backfired when she picked the wrong person to mess with. Some lawyer who actually fought back and hired investigators to prove what she'd been doing. Rebecca got fired, sued, and blacklisted from the industry. Last I heard, she was working retail at a department store, and everyone who knew her history refused to give her references. Karma eventually caught up, but not before she'd ruined dozens of careers and lives just because she could.